My favorite way to explain what those are like is where you take 2 concrete blocks, you put them in the freezer. That's where it starts.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle. Not quite all the way out from under the weather.
I know. I just can't shake it, man. I can't shake it.
Shake it off. Shake it off. So, yeah, the thing, though, is you have to go on this nice vacation to Key West in order to get sick. It's hard to feel sorry for you.
I know, right? It's just stuff in the air, man. Stuff in the air.
Yeah, it's not even pollen season.
Well, it is for me. I have, that asthma thing, and it's allergy induced, and the least little speck of something gets into my lungs, and it's going to be torture. And then I was down there for all of the winds coming through with those tropical storms. Who knows where stuff came from?
Mm-hmm. You're just breathing all kind of nastiness from across the globe.
I know. I was doing great. I was down there for weeks, and I left on Wednesday, and on Monday afternoon, I went, uh-oh.
Start feeling it.
Tried to take a deep breath, and it didn't work out so well. So, yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, you'll be better soon, I'm sure. So
yeah. I'll shake it.
We'll have you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Later this week, you and I both will be attending virtually the what is it? Safeguarding HIPAA. I forget the whole
NIST OCR safeguarding health information through HIPAA security. Safeguarding health information, building assurance through HIPAA security 2024.
Whew, yeah. Mouthful. But you and I will be attending that this week, and then that's Wednesday and Thursday. So Friday we will record some of our findings and things that come out of that. So
it's all fresh and we can remember it.
I know. We might want to record like the day after or the evening after. What did they talk about this evening? Yeah. So we'll get that recorded and out quickly, so everybody will know what's going on with that. But today we're going to be talking about sell me this pen, Donna. So we're going to talk about pen testing, and the reason why I titled it "Sell Me This Pen" is because it's kind of got born out of somebody who called to sell them a pen test.
Yeah,
and the question basically was, I need a pen test. How much is it going to cost? And I was like, well, there's like a lot of different pen tests. What pen test do you want? And it's like, I don't know. I just need a pen test. Like,
we've gotten those calls too. I need a pen test. Do you? Do you really?
Yeah. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And I don't know. Somebody told me I need a pen test. I'm like, well, here's all the different kinds of pen tests. And I didn't present them with all of them, just, the most common ones. And then they're like, no, we don't need any of these. And then come to find out what they needed was a vulnerability assessment. And so I figured it might be good for us to talk about what is pen testing? What are the different types of pen tests? How does it differ from a vulnerability assessment or vulnerability scan or whatever you want to call those? And that way you're more educated on what to ask for.
Well, and it helps in a lot of ways, because people will say, well, that we had a penetration test, but I'm looking at a vulnerability scan. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you need to know what you bought, and you need to know what to ask for. And technical people aren't well known for being able to explain things. So,
yeah. I guess it makes me not technical, because I can explain things pretty well.
Yeah. Well, we are an oddity in so many ways.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, I actually had a presentation I did for the chamber recently when we did it at the university. So, which was funny because this university I went to, and I stood up there. I said, "Let me just soak all this in. Like, I barely made it out of here, and now I'm teaching here.
It's a moment for you, for sure.
Yeah. But it wasn't because the educational institution asked me to come. It was because the chamber did.
The educational institution said, we didn't know you were bringing him.
Yeah, it's like, what? We thought we kept him out of here. But anyway, it was still fun to do it and shock people with everything that you can find online doing OSINT and open source intelligence. And maybe we'll talk more about that one day, but it really is one of my favorite things to do. I really, really enjoy that. Digging up stuff on people. And my wife says she is a self-proclaimed FBI agent, which stands for Facebook investigator. So she apparently can find a whole lot of stuff on social media. Yeah. So, and she doesn't even know about all the other rabbit holes that she can go down. I haven't showed her those things.
Keep her in the dark. Mushroom her on that. Keep her in the dark.
Yeah, I need to. But she does a pretty good job of sneaking around, finding out stuff. So.
Yeah, but we both know Lori doesn't need to know all that.
No, she does not. Let's leave some things on the dark web.
Yeah.
It's like, how did your stuff get on the dark web? I put it there. All right, so let's get started. So let's talk about first, what is an actual penetration test? So penetration testing, sometimes we call it pen testing, which I prefer to call it pen testing for some reasons that you can probably think. You get some weird looks sometimes.
Yeah.
But, you're doing like a simulated cyber attack on either systems or applications or networks. And what you're doing is you're trying to identify vulnerabilities that an attacker could also identify and exploit. And so you want to find the security weaknesses, obviously, before the bad guys do. And this will allow you to fix them proactively. That's why you want to do a pen test. And typically the people that do these can be called ethical hackers or white hat hackers. But basically you just want to mimic, the kind of a real world attack. What would it actually look like if I'm attacked during this pen testing? And we'll get into all the different kinds here in a little bit, and you'll understand why they're so segmented. But what you're looking at is how effective are the existing security measures.
Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting to see how it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I liken it to, how we talk about backup a lot. And you're not paying for backup, you're paying for the ability to restore. And you don't know how that's going to go until you do it. Well, pen testing is kind of like that for security. Like, you don't know how good your security is unless you test it. Mm-hmm. You don't know how good your backups are unless you test them. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same thing. And most people don't do this. And for various reasons, some's because they don't understand it. Others is because it ain't cheap most of the time, depending on which one you do. So, you already got people saying, I'm paying thousands of dollars a month for security. Now you're telling me I got to pay thousands of dollars more to test the security. Aren't you doing that for free? So let's talk about the difference between a pen test and a vulnerability assessment, because this is where I think we run into a lot of differences. People, like I said in my opener here, we had somebody asking for a pen test, but what they really wanted was a vulnerability assessment. And it took a lot of back and forth to figure that out.
Yeah. So here is we try to tie back into healthcare so that you can envision it. So a vulnerability assessment is like you're going for a checkup, your physical at the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. They're checking all of the things that could indicate there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Turn your head and cough.
Yeah. And, and listen to your heart and your lungs, take your BP, maybe some lab work. But, they're just looking for any indicator of a problem where there are known issues. They know if they hear something weird on your heartbeat or your blood pressure's high or low, those are indicators of a vulnerability in your operating system.
Mm-hmm.
A penetration test is when they say, well, let's just see how that works. Let's check your own operating system and focus on a vulnerability like your heart. And they send you to get a stress test for whatever.
I'm glad you didn't use a colonoscopy as a pen test.
I know.
I appreciate that, Donna.
I know. I like to go with that one, but let's just, we don't want everybody thinking about that. And the ones that, anyway, I could have used a mammography, but that would also, women would understand, but everybody wouldn't. My favorite way to explain what those are like is where you take 2 concrete blocks, you put them in the freezer. That's where it starts. So we're just going to go with stress tests of the heart where they, get you on a treadmill and try to run your heart rate up to actually test and see how well you could do. So they kind of probe and got all these monitors on you and all of this. So in theory, one is actually just looking at all, just looking for anything that looks out of place, could be wrong. That's your physical. But if they find something, now they're going to do a penetration test. They're going to focus on an area. They're going to actually test that thing and see how it's performing.
Right. Yep. So the vulnerability assessment would be like, looking at known vulnerabilities, but not exploiting them. Let's don't see if the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, this lock on this door has been known to break if you hit it hard enough, but I'm not going to hit it.
Right. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you that that's a thing that could happen.
Yeah. So if you want to say, hey, hold my beer, then we can do an exploit and see if that's the case. So that's the difference there. And it's certainly good to have a vulnerability assessment. In fact, when you look at most frameworks, you see vulnerability management. And I guess let's talk about what the difference between an assessment and management is. So the assessment, a vulnerability assessment, is like a snapshot in time. Mm-hmm. So you're doing a vulnerability assessment. This is what we find. These are the vulnerabilities. And there is likely never a time where you won't find vulnerabilities. So don't be shocked. Mm-hmm. There's always vulnerabilities. And then what you do is when you find those, you start remediating those vulnerabilities, usually patching and all this type of stuff. And then you go back and you have to run it all again to make sure you got it all. And then guess what? You're going to pick up new ones. And so because it's an ongoing process, for those folks who say, well, we do a vulnerability assessment once a year, okay, that's pretty worthless. I mean, it's great for that one time a year, but you have no idea. You don't even know if after the assessment, if you've even fixed everything, and you don't know what other vulnerabilities you have the other 11 months out of the year. So,
and what's scary is when we do it once a year, they look basically the same. That's even worse.
Yeah. Okay. Great. You didn't fix anything.
Yeah. Just got more.
So I'm one of these people that really, I don't promote vulnerability assessments. I promote vulnerability management because it really does need to be something that you're constantly doing all the time. Pen testing, on the other hand, you're not constantly doing all the time. Would be expensive, and it's a bigger lift because sometimes you have to bring a lot of people in on it, and it's a lot to it. So we'll talk about it more in just a second here. But the penetration testing helps organizations. Number one, they can validate that the effectiveness of their security measures are good. They can also understand the risk exposure that they have of their assets, so their computers and servers and network stuff and all that. And hopefully you can improve your incident response strategies. So you're kind of doing like some simulation stuff. And there's some other things too that's really good about it. The one thing I like about it too is oftentimes you're not just testing your systems, but you're also testing your people.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, David. If I do a vulnerability scan and I remediate everything it finds and I have a vulnerability management program, why would I want to do pen testing? because I've found all my vulnerabilities, right?
Technically, I don't know of a time where you really ever get rid of all your vulnerabilities, because by the time you fix them, there's more.
Exactly.
And,
that's number one.
Yeah. But you still don't know 100% whether or not the exploitation of those things can or cannot be done. And
Yes.
so
some things you have there and you can't get rid. Okay. Like we use RDP. All right. That there's a vulnerability in using that if it's not configured a certain way and utilized a certain way. So it's actually using these things, they call it living off the land for a reason. That the attackers use the same things your people use and are using it for malicious purposes. And then, of course, getting back to is testing your people as well.
Yeah.
And that's a key piece.
Yeah. And arguably that might be your biggest vulnerability. So how are you going to vulnerability manage your people who are also a vulnerability?
Yes.
So that's a harder one, but there are tools that do that.
Yeah.
To some degree anyway, but you know how it is. Like I can be the absolute best at not clicking on stuff. And then all of a sudden it's Friday right before a long July 4th weekend. And I'm heading, I'm mentally out the door. Something comes in, and I click on it and bam, there you go. I was really good at it. And now I am a vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. It could change in a heartbeat, literally. You don't even need a stress test to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yes. let's list a few reasons why this is critical for organizations to do, because some people are like, well, why do I care? Well, there's a lot of reasons. I'll hit several of them, but one is obviously you want to identify the vulnerabilities before the attackers do, because they will find them. It improves your security posture. If you have compliance with industry regulations to keep up with, then, that's part of like every framework now is doing something, whether it's vulnerability management or pen testing. And oftentimes it obviously depends upon the size and scope and all this kind of stuff. But you can test your incident response capabilities. You can mitigate financial risk. You can preserve customer trust and brand reputation. You can adapt to evolving threats. So for those folks like, I just had it done last year. Do you know how much changes in a year when it comes to threats evolving?
A lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You can tailor security strategies to unique business needs. And then lastly, you can demonstrate due diligence to stakeholders or a jury. Because this is one of the areas that I use all the time when people say, well, don't I already have X security over here? And you're telling me I need Y and Z security too, because it's advanced. And I'm like, look, it's your business decision. Which one do you feel more comfortable standing up in a court of law and testifying that you went with the basic security included with that product, or that you went the extra mile and put a little bit of advanced security on there? And 9.9 times out of 10, they're like, yeah, give me the advanced security. I'm like, yeah, because you don't feel comfortable putting all your eggs in one basket, nor do you want to sit on the stand and say, I didn't do anything in additional to the bare minimum.
Yep. I did the bare minimum and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who say that as they're paying a fine.
Yeah. Well,
oh man,
that's what we talked about last week. Anyway.
But before we dive into the types of pen tests, we want to talk about kind of some methodologies of pen testing, because it's important to understand this piece of it. And you've got something here you wanted to bring up about a Forbes report.
Yeah, well, Forbes article about Bug Crowd report on Inside the Mind of a Hacker 2024. And it had some great stuff in it, but in that report, they brought up in the article I was reading about the report that it confirmed the view that the AI threat landscape is evolving too fast to be adequately secured.
That's not good.
And that is based on hackers, like the good guy hackers, not the bad guy hackers, the good guy hackers. 81% of the 1,300 good guy hackers, the white hat, they're not malicious when they find things. The 81% believe it is moving too fast to properly secure it. And they also felt that it enhances the value of their hacking using AI does. In 2023, 21% said, oh, it will. 2024, 1 year later, 71% said. So
that's a big jump.
That's huge. So we have to keep in mind when we're talking about all of this, that AI is playing a bigger and bigger role in, number one, the ability to do this testing, but also the ability to find these problems. And it's either you're going to find it with your AI or the not so nice hackers are going to find it with theirs.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of all the AI stuff is it will drastically help us improve security, but it's also going to drastically improve the bad guy's ability to see whether or not you've improved your security.
Yeah. Everything we build to protect us, they can find a way to use that against us. So, but everything we're going to talk about in here, one of the big glaring vulnerabilities that no scan can truly address is AI. And it's moving so fast that 81% of the people who do this kind of hacking to find these problems so we can fix them before they're used think that it's moving so fast it can't be secured. So keep that in mind, that it is more urgent than ever.
And in fact, one of the ones that's not on my list and probably, I don't even know if it's a thing yet, but AI pen testing will be something that we'll have to start doing. I don't think we're doing AI pen testing yet, en masse, but that didn't even make my list. So, but that's another one.
In that article, or in one of the articles about that report, where one of the hackers said that they were chatting with an AI bot and accidentally was able to hack into the system that hosted it let accidentally, they weren't even trying. They just saw, oh, look, I could do this. Let me see. Oh, boom, I did do that.
Yeah.
So,
It just let me right in.
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's talk about a few of the methodologies that can be used in pen testing. So one is called black box testing. And I think this is what people assume is going on. And this is where we'll do a simulated attack, and we're doing it usually from the outside, and we have no knowledge of the system, no knowledge of anything.
Yeah.
We're just coming in blind.
You're going to rob a bank and you know nothing about the bank. No floor plans, no timing, when people work, you know nothing.
Yep. It's like you just drive down the road and like, hey, there's a bank. Let's rob it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So, but it is good for, testing how well systems defend against unknown attackers. So if they don't know anything about you, then, they're spray and pray. And it's good for that. The next one we have is white box testing. So the opposite of black box. So with white box, this is where the tester has full access. They know the source code, they know the architecture, they know the documentation, they know everything about it. Yeah, it's like they know everything about it. What they're doing is they're just looking for like deep-rooted security flaws and misconfigurations and issues with internal systems. So it's like they're already in, quote unquote, they're already in on the inside, but how well is it set up even once you're inside? Because that's important too, because not all of your attacks are coming from outside. Sometimes the phone call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, so that's like you're going to rob the bank. You got the blueprints, you got access to the security cameras, you got everything. You just got to time what you're going to do. So
yeah. And then last one, a little mix of the two, gray box testing. So this is a hybrid approach where the tester does have partial knowledge of the systems, and they don't know everything, but they know some stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's your robbing the bank using an ex-employee's info.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is a good balanced real world scenario, because most of the time, somebody's trying to attack you. They do have some information usually, or they can get some pretty quickly. So there's your three methodologies. And then on top of that, we have what's called red team, blue team, and even, yes, you can mix them up and get purple.
I know, right?
So the red team, they are your attackers. So if you ever heard of red team exercises, that means you're doing offensive security. You're attacking. Then there's the blue team. That's your defenders. So blue team exercises will be defending against the red team. And some organizations, if they're large enough, they will have some people in the red team, some people in the blue team, and they, capture the flag or they fight against each other just to see. And it helps everybody. It helps everybody to understand how the outside criminal element could better attack them, but also it helps the internal team better defend. So it's really, really good to have both.
Well, and that's one of the things I heard a military officer speak one time that's over our cybersecurity in the Army team, and talked about they cycle people through. You can't always be on defense or always on offense. You need to be able to do both. And they cycle them through on purpose to go through, those constant, sometimes I'm after them, sometimes I'm defending us against them. So it is you can't ever let your guard down. You have to think both mindsets. It's like when you're driving, you've got defensive driving, but you can't be just defensive. Sometimes you have to be offensive. So, you got to have a little bit of both when you're driving. If you live in Atlanta, you totally get that. Oh, look, I can go forward 5 feet. Get it now. And but yeah, it's the same kind of concept. But that purple those are the people who observe and monitor and get to say, isn't that interesting that y'all let them do that?
Yeah. And, typically your IT team, internal or MSP, usually they're blue team. We're defending all the time.
Yeah.
Rarely are we attacking our own clients.
Yeah.
They usually do that pretty good on their own, but we're trying to defend all the time. And if we need a pen test, and if you guys, our longtime listeners, you might remember when Donna and I, we paid for a pen test against both of our organizations, and did a podcast episode about it. It was pretty intriguing.
Yeah, they were mad.
They were not. It was very fun to watch, and it was very hard not to say anything whenever they're coming to us, telling us about, we're being attacked, and we're trying not to jump in the middle of it too hard, and we're also not wanting to say, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's
it was fun.
It. Yeah.
But I think Carla still has a little resentment to this day for that.
Yeah, that and when we had them fished.
I know.
Yeah.
So definitely fun to do. But if you're going to have, like if you're an MSP or you have an MSP or whatever, it's better to have another team perform the pen testing. So you get that third party to do that. Now, it doesn't mean your MSP can't do the pen testing for you through a third party, but just have that conversation, because I know, like with us, if a client wants to do a pen test, we can do that, but we don't actually do the work. We outsource that to one of our vendors who does it and then gives us all of the reporting and the clients, the reporting and all that. So it doesn't mean you have to go and circumvent your MSP. Just ask them about it. Usually they have access to do that through another vendor.
Yeah, definitely. So,
all right,
let's talk about those different types.
Let's jump into these because there's quite a few, and I left off some. I just kind of gave them honorable mention in the end. I'm just going to cover the most well-known, typically, and probably some in here I would say you probably may not ever do, but we're going to list them anyway. Mm-hmm. So if you go to ask for a pen test, you need to understand what type of pen test do you need. Mm-hmm. And probably one of the most common ones is a network pen test.
Yes.
So network penetration testing. So this is where you're testing your entire network. You're looking for vulnerabilities in your network infrastructure, things like servers, firewalls, switches, routers, all those things that people have in a closet somewhere.
Remote access, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, database attacks, man-in-the-middle attacks, switching and routing attacks. There's a bunch of stuff that can happen here. And this is your most common one. So you can do this for external facing. And this is common. It's fairly easy to do this, to put this is what my external IP address is, and then have tools that kind of knock at the door to see what it can get into. Mm-hmm. So doing one of these types of penetration scans is usually fairly common to do. And then you've got the internal facing systems. And that's they're in on the inside, and they're knocking on the doors of everything else that's in your network. So they've made it past the firewall and they're in. Mm-hmm. What else do they find? And so that's what you want to do, because you don't want to assume, well, I did an external test and they didn't get in, so we're good. Mm-hmm. How about do the external test, assume somebody can get in.
Yeah.
Now what are they getting to?
Yeah, I've actually had IT folks say, well, these are all internal machines. They're not public facing. And I'm like, so you are going to assume they will never get in. You can't do that anymore. You have to assume not only will they, but they're already in. Is what you have to do. That's huge.
Yeah, because if your users happen to let somebody in, then they're in. Mm-hmm. So, and it's like you mentioned earlier, they're getting in oftentimes in ways that's hard to pick up because they're doing living off the land, or somebody gave them credentials or something like that. And so if they're on the inside, what are you doing to protect yourself there?
Yes. So,
all right. Next one, and this one we don't see quite as much, which is web application pen testing.
Well, if you work with software companies like we do that are actually creating and hosting the web applications, they're the ones that should be doing this. And I caution people who are like, well, I want to do a web test of my EHR penetration test. No, you don't want to just up and do one of those, cause then you're kind of illegally attacking them. So that's, most penetration testers would know that and not get involved. But if you weren't clear, so you have to keep in mind, if you don't own something, you don't just start testing it and probing it. Well, you could. It's just not recommended as a business practice. That's all I'm going to say. So
yeah. I do think with AI, since we talked about that earlier, I do think AI is going to make web application creation a lot easier in the future. Yeah. So you may start seeing more and more organizations decide to create their own web application. Exactly. And they put it out there.
Yeah.
And now you got bigger issues.
Yes, that is when you need to do that. Like if you're in that world and people build these applications in SharePoint or whatever for their internal use, you better be testing those. Because the number of times I've reviewed those and they had gaping holes all over the place in the security of it. And I just sat through a demo and found 10 ways that I knew that it wasn't secure, never even touched it. Just a demo. and ask a handful of questions. So if you are creating these, you better have somebody making sure they're secure. So,
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Our next one of my favorites. So wireless penetration testing. Wireless penetration testing would be evaluating, the security on your wireless network and your wireless devices, and looking for things like weakness in encryption, unauthorized access points, misconfigurations, using the default username and passwords on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, and there's been more than one time that I've sat in the parking lot and I'm like, oh, I'm connected to such and such Wi-Fi. I wonder if I can, get to their router. And then you put the address in. Oh, here's the login screen for their router. I wonder if it's the default credentials. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my God. I'm in.
Yeah. Don't want to be there. That is not, there's nothing more scary than to sit in a parking lot anywhere today. Or on a street and just pull up all of the Wi-Fis that are unsecured.
Yeah. And what gets me is you're at a strip mall of all these businesses, and you pull up their Wi-Fi and you see like Linksys and Netgear and all these brands that, you can go pick up at any big box store. Not saying that those can't be secured, but those are typically not for business. And,
if you're going to use them for business, you should know how to secure them.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to say there.
Yep. Do your wireless pen testing. And, there's a lot that can go into that. We won't be talking about wireless cracking and all that, but there's a lot of tools out there that help to crack and break into wireless devices. And just think about it. Your wireless signal is literally going out into the parking lot. Somebody can just sit in their car all day.
Well, pick up
just try their best to get in there. I mean, and there's all kind of devices like, this little thing I got here that you can do all kind of crazy stuff with.
Yeah. Or they're sitting out there using your guest Wi-Fi network to do fraudulent activity, which is another thing, because you never monitor and make sure somebody's been on our guest network all day. That should be a clue.
Hopefully you got it set up to where hopefully you got it set up where they can't do that.
You again, hope. And the other thing is you also have to recognize that there's more Wi-Fi than just the wireless signal that we know is Wi-Fi. Bluetooth is Wi-Fi. Bluetooth is your personal wireless networks. And the things that can connect Bluetooth, it's always quite interesting.
Yeah. So I think we were at one of the boot camps and we were talking about some of this stuff. And I took the wireless network of the area we were at and I replicated it and then created like a little hotspot that people could log into. And it was, it still got them to the internet, but all their traffic would then go through my device.
Yeah.
So it was funny when I did that because some people saw it like wait a minute, all these networks wasn't here earlier.
Yeah. What's going on here? This is new.
Yeah. And plus I named them crazy stuff. So it was fairly apparent, what I was doing.
But it was that easy. And that's the point we were trying to get across, is to show people how easy it is.
Yeah. It's, proof of concept. Look, if you think this stuff is really hard, I'm going to show you how with a $99 device, I can do that right here, right now. And so super, super easy to do. And all you got to do is watch a couple YouTube videos and have the right little piece of equipment. And that's it. Anybody can do it.
It's not complicated.
All right. Man, I like this next one.
Yeah.
I don't get to do these very often, but
those are my faves.
Physical pen testing.
Yeah.
So this is where all the cool stories come from when you listen to like the podcast episodes and stuff from people that do this. But this is where they are directly attacking the physical components of the organization's security. So this is where they are making sure that the locks are secure, the sensors and the alarm systems and the access card systems and cameras and other alarms and the security staff or just any staff. You hear this all the time about how they couldn't get through a door because it had a key card on it, but they went right behind somebody else who opened the door and then held the door for them.
Yeah. Those are the ones I like, where you get to do those. And, I was a while back, I was teaching a guy how to go do one. And he'd never done one before. He's an IT guy. And he's like, I'm like, you can do this. And, it's one of those people, they're so honest, it makes them nervous to do this stuff. And I'm like, you got to say that, you're playing the part. Don't let your halo bang you in the head. It's okay. But what you do, if you put on a polo shirt with some sort of emblem on it, IT looking emblem, throw a backpack or something over your shoulder and carry a bunch of technical equipment, people will leave you alone and just let you do stuff.
Yeah. It's like when we were, I was going through some slides of that presentation I did last week, and in front of the guy's house, I got a picture of his house, and right in front of it, he's got one of these little tiny transformers from the power company. And so I asked the audience, I said, if I pulled up in a white van, threw on a Dayglow vest, and I stood there in front of that little power thing, how long do you think I could stay there before somebody questioned it? And they were like, probably all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nobody's going to pay you any attention. So it's the same way with this. If you look the part, and you act the part, most people let you do what you want to do.
And you walk into a business that's busy and just wave or just kind of act like you're getting in line. And then when nobody's paying attention, get out of line and just wander off. You can go all over the place. Sometimes I've gone in places and I got tired of wandering around, sat down in an office for a little while. Nobody ever said a word.
What's the one that somebody stopped you one time and said, what are you doing? And you told them what you were doing. They said, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm literally just wandering around aimlessly, seeing what I can get into. Oh, okay. I have it on video. I took it back. At that point, I just stopped and went to the administrator, played the video, and she was like, okay, you don't need to do any more.
Yeah.
The other favorite is when I had two folks at one site, and one tried the front door and just walked right in the front door. No problemo. Looked like the IT guy, goes in. The other was trying the outside doors, but was texting with the one inside. And they had found a door where the one inside was going to let the one outside in. And there's one person that always knows. That's it. You only want one person to know the day, the time. And so then some people in the parking lot, some employees that were coming back from lunch or something, noticed the one outside and started questioning them and called somebody. They were ready to call 911. They had caught somebody trying to break in. And they you use the safe word, if you will, and the person comes and is so proud that they have stopped them. And my person goes, well, the issue is I was at this door because the other guy's going to let me in. He's already inside.
Yeah. Sometimes it's one of those things where once you catch the first person, you think you're done.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, glad we caught him. Well, yeah, but that was more of a distraction than anything else.
Yeah. In the meantime, they could have kept you busy all day long while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So those are the ones though that you need to send somebody that just to see what they can do.
Yeah. Where I've done this before, just in smaller offices, is I've been able to walk in the office. Sometimes I'm able to walk in to an area where their computers are. Oftentimes there's network jacks in the wall that are live. Nothing's plugged into them. So I can plug anything I want to in there, grab an IP address. And I'm on the network.
Yeah.
At this point, if I wanted to and I have the equipment, I could plug it in and just leave it. and just leave and go back and remote right into that equipment.
Yep. Or I like going in and leaving your business card when you're in a place you shouldn't be,
Yeah.
Or calling somebody from that place and saying, hey, you want to come meet me? I'm in your office. Where? In the computer room. In the computer with the servers. Yeah, I'm in there. I'm standing here looking at your switches.
The biggest shake of my head moment was when I went into this doctor's office and I had to use the restroom. So I go in there and I'm washing my hands and I look up in the mirror and I see behind me like one of these bifold doors, and it's open. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was probably like where the water heater was. Well, it was, but I saw like a bunch of network cables hanging down.
Oh, geez.
And so I go and poke my head in there, and their entire network is in there.
In the bathroom. That everyone uses.
That I can go into and lock and stay in there with all their network equipment.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then I went and I said, why is the door open, first of all? They were like, well, it gets hot in there. And so our IT guy told us to open the bifold door to let air in. I said, so he didn't tell you that was probably a bad place to put that equipment? Well, no, he said this was the only place that made sense to put it. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Oh, please.
All right.
I know how to build a network. I don't know how to secure one.
Yeah. You don't want to say too much because you never know when it's like somebody's brother or son or something that did it.
Yeah.
So you just like, okay.
All right. So you can tell this is our favorite part of penetration testing that we get to do.
Yeah. But the next one, also fun, social engineering pen testing. Now, this is the one where you get to look, you get to go on in line and see what they're doing on social media. You get to try phishing attacks. You can drop USB drives. We talked about that. You got spoofing of numbers or email addresses. And, you're looking for vulnerabilities within individuals or groups of individuals or a process that your business follows that's not great.
Yeah.
So you're looking to do all those things.
Working on social media is one.
Mm-hmm.
You connect with people on social media, and that's an easy way in. And you can use social engineering to facilitate attacks in all the other methods of attacking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think this one's probably the most used social engineering, not penetration testing of social engineering. But most of the time, people are doing some type of social engineering to try to get you to let them in. Hacking the human is what we often call it, because it's a lot easier to do this than it is to get through systems. Because systems are black and white. It's like, yep, gonna let you in. Nope, ain't gonna let you in. A human could be like, nope, not gonna let you in. And then you tell a sad sob story. Okay, I'll let you in.
I feel sorry for you. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like you just changed the policy on the human. All right. Next one, and this is one that's not done as often as I think it should be. And this was the IoT penetration testing. So Internet of Things, or as it's called in 405D hiccup stuff, the connected medical devices.
Yeah.
So, are you doing pen testing on your connected medical devices or anything? Honestly, this IoT, because was it you that sent me the vacuum cleaner that just got hacked?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I was thrilled to see it wasn't my brand, but it's a vacuum cleaner that had firmware that was letting people take over the camera on the vacuums so that it could just like meander into a room and look and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't vacuum in the nude.
But case out the place, check out where everything's kept, when people come and go, all these things. And there's so many things connected now. I was at my friend's house and he has a fridge that has the Wi-Fi connection capability. He's like, I don't want that, do I? I was like, oh, no, you do not. No, you have no need for that. No, we don't. No.
Yeah. I mean, everything almost connects to it nowadays. It's crazy. And then the last one here, before we get to our honorable mentions, is cloud penetration testing. And this one is something that definitely needs to be done. So this is where you're testing your cloud infrastructure. So you're looking for configuration errors and access controls and weak authentication methods of things like your AWS accounts, your Azure accounts, your Google Cloud accounts. So anywhere that you've got cloud stuff happening, and it's more and more prevalent that people are moving things to cloud-based infrastructure.
And you could put things in here like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, those, because those need to kind of go into this category.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because it is your cloud email server. Yeah. So instead of having an email server physical now, you've moved that to the cloud. So that's definitely something you should test. And then I got a few honorable mentions in here, which I have like zero experience on, which is API pen testing, blockchain pen testing, mobile app pen testing, and then SCADA pen testing.
Yeah. Don't
know nothing about any of those.
And the SCADA is probably the only one I wouldn't know what that's about. But the others, I am familiar with having those done. And the blockchain one is the one that is coming into play. And they're still trying, to make blockchain be the thing that is how we're going to secure everything. And the number of people who've lost all of their Bitcoin wallets, their crypto wallets, there's a lot of things happening in there, but it's actually there. I think, they're attacking the APIs or the access controls and those things, or the mobile apps, not necessarily the blockchain itself. So there's a lot of different ways that anything that's stored digitally or that's transmitted digitally should be tested if it's important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So think of it like going around and checking the knobs on the door, on the house and the windows on the house. You're walking around and you're making sure that all your locks are working properly and nobody can get in, all that kind of stuff. So do some pen testing. It's definitely worth it. And remember, you can do pen testing periodically, whereas vulnerability, you should be doing vulnerability management constantly, not vulnerability assessments periodically. So there you go. Hopefully we've helped you understand a lot of this stuff. So next time you hear about needing a pen test, you can say, well, what kind do we need? What are we trying to do? Maybe we don't need one. So kind of get everybody on the right page. And I think
be the smart one in the room because you listen to Help Me with HIPAA.
That's right. There you go. All right, folks, that is our show for today. Thanks again. And be sure to share this out. I know you know somebody who needs to hear it. Send it to them. And go leave us a review. We appreciate it. And remember, as always, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right. Protect your patients day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.